Ladies and gentlemen, today I got an exciting video to share with you all. There's a very interesting game on the horizon, one I think you should very much have on your radar, and that game is called Warside. It's an Advance Wars-like game coming out on Steam sometime in the near future. I was given early access by its developers, and in this video I'm going to give my honest thoughts and opinions on the gameplay. Now, the demo I got to play was pretty short, only 6 missions. By the time this video goes live, it might be available for you to play on Steam, give or take a few hours depending on your time zone, so I'll throw a link if you want to check it out before you watch this video. Alternatively, you can watch this first and then go download it. Anyway, as I said, the demo is pretty short, so obviously you need to take that into consideration. A lot of what you see in this video is subject to change before the game comes out, so don't get too caught up in the finer details. If I were to describe Warside with one sentence, I would say that it's like if Advance Wars and Wargroove had a baby together. The game takes elements of both and merges them together into one, and I think it's a pretty bold approach, but I'm excited to see how it's going to pan out. Right off the bat, I want to start off this video with some praise. Warside really impressed me with its visuals. This 2D style of pixel art is what I've wanted modern games to adopt for a long time, so it's nice to see it finally realized. The first time I glanced at the battlefield, I immediately knew what all the different units were. It wasn't like the reboot camp where I struggled to tell them apart. I found the controls very responsive and the units moved across the screen with ease, making for a very enjoyable gameplay experience. The animations were also decent. Not perfect, but easy on the eyes. I have some slight criticisms. For one, I find them a little bit slow. There's this delay between units stopping and firing that I feel they can cut away, but you can skip these animations with the click of your mouse, so it's not like it's a big deal. In the demo, I got to meet 5 different COs. Apparently there's going to be 12 of them at release, but the ones I got to see were Jackson, Beckett, Reaver, Blaze, and Flint. I didn't get to see any of their abilities or powers since there were no CO dossiers in the demo, and the power button was grayed out, so I can't say much about them yet. I will say that design-wise, some of these COs are really good. Reaver, Blaze, and Flint all look amazing. I particularly love Blaze's hood and goggles, but the 2 initial COs that you are introduced to, Jackson and Beckett, leave a little bit to be desired. Anyway, I am looking forward to seeing all the different abilities and powers of these COs. From the official Warside trailer that dropped a little while ago, I've seen that one of them has a similar power to Bolt from Dual Strike, paralyzing a big cluster of units with a missile, which is pretty cool. Now, as for the 6 demo missions I've played, I don't really have a lot to say about them. They were all pretty basic. The intro and outro dialogue for each map were incredibly short and seemed more like placeholder text than actual story. Every single mission was a simple destroy all enemy units. There were no unique objectives, but each new map did introduce a new type of unit similar to the Advance Wars campaign. Every single mission was quite enjoyable, though I'm not sure if it's because I was having fun playing around with all the new toys or because the maps were well made, but I will say that most of them tended to drag a lot towards the end. Again, this is the demo, so I'm expecting there to be a lot more advanced objectives in the campaign, and hopefully we'll see the return of classic objectives such as capture battles, escorting units, defend for a certain amount of days, etc. Anyway, with the first impressions out of the way, it's time to get into the meat of this video: gameplay and units. So earlier, I said that Warside is like if Advance Wars and Wargroove had a baby. Warside takes most of the gameplay elements from Advance Wars. You make infantry, you use them to capture properties, get more income, and then use that income to build more expensive units. It's a true and tested formula, and it really works. But Warside has decided to copy Wargroove's capture system. Neutral properties are captured instantly. No need to put your infantry on top of them and jump on the building for 2 days. However, if you want to capture an enemy property, you must first attack it and reduce its hit points to 0. You can do this with vehicles too, meaning tanks can actually threaten enemy properties, but only infantry units can actually flip them over to your side. Unlike Wargroove, however, where the buildings would defend themselves when attacked, Warside's buildings do not. They are sitting ducks, and if you leave them undefended, any unit can waltz up and knock them down given enough time. Once a property is captured, it starts out at 2 HP, making it very vulnerable to being flipped back again. So if you don't have appropriate map control in the area, it's probably better to focus on taking out enemy units rather than stealing their properties. This system of capturing has many benefits and downsides. The benefit is that any unit is able to apply economical pressure in in Warside. If you let a bunch of tanks ride up to your properties, they can destroy them and ruin your income. So you need to spread your units across the map to make sure you hold those properties. Another benefit of this kind of capture system is that you can't just sit your units on cities anymore. In Advance Wars, cities gave 3 terrain stars and repaired 2 HP per turn, so a tank parked on a city was very difficult to dislodge. Warside does not have this problem. This means that the gameplay is less likely to stall when there's a lot of cities on the map. However, this system is not without its downsides. It very often leads to a game of ping pong where a property just continuously gets flipped between 2 players for days on end, and it can feel a little repetitive. In Advance Wars, once you capture a property, it is usually very hard for the enemy to take it back without investing a considerable amount into their counterattack. Whereas in Warside, it is actually very easy to flip captured properties back and forth. The absence of property sitting also means that there's no way to repair your vehicles. I at least could not find a way to do it, nor was I able to combine 2 wounded units together to create a stronger one. So it seems like your low HP vehicles are just going to be stuck that way. Maybe there's some CO powers that will repair them, but so far there's nothing in the game that I could find. As for terrain, it is mostly the same as it is in Advanced Wars. Roads give no terrain stars, plains give 1, forests now give 3 instead of 2. I suppose this is to make up for the lack of cities. Rivers, interestingly, take another note out of Wargroove's playbook and have -1 negative terrain stars. Mountains still give 4, and I wasn't able to test out any of the sea terrain since none of the maps were naval focused. Up next, I want to talk about production facilities, because here, Warside really deviates from Advanced Wars in a big way. Whereas Advanced Wars deployed all ground units from a single base, Warside splits infantry and vehicles into 2 different ones: barracks for infantry and factories for vehicles. Additionally, production facilities can produce up to 3 units per turn, but only if they are at full HP. If a facility gets damaged, its production capacity goes down. A 2 HP factory, for example, can only produce a single unit per turn. This means that damaging the enemy production facilities to limit their unit count is actually going to be a viable strategy. So if you don't protect your bases, they might actually get targeted and you won't be able to defend yourself. I find this system immensely cool. It's going to be very tricky to balance, but it could be really amazing if they do it right. I will say, however, that this system is not without its drawbacks. Being able to produce up to 6 units every turn on 2 bases might lead to very high unit count. If you then factor in airports and eventually seaports, and then throw multiple bases into the mix, players will be able to rapidly build up huge armies very quickly. It's an interesting system for sure, and I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out, but this is a massive deviation from Advanced Wars, and one that could end up being amazing if balanced properly. Up next, I'm going to look at each of the units I got to play with in the demo, but since this is an early alpha version of the game and so much is subject to change, I'm only going to offer surface level thoughts on the units themselves. I'm not going to get caught up in things like price, movement, damage values, etc., because I believe all of this is going to be tweaked in the final release. So with that, let's check out the infantry units of this game. In the Warside demo, I got to play with 3 different kinds: infantry, snipers, and medics. Now, you may notice that there is a unit missing from this lineup, and that is the mech. I asked the devs if they were going to put it in the game, and they seemed undecided about it. Personally, I hope mechs won't be part of Warside, as I find them to be a very difficult unit to balance in competitive play. They're either overpowered or useless depending on the map they're on. Infantry units are pretty much what you'd expect. They move slow, are weak to every other unit in the game, but you need them to capture properties and shield your more expensive units. Snipers are a new type of indirect unit with range comparable to artillery that are highly effective against other infantry units, but they are incredibly weak if attacked directly. Being infantry units, they can also help capture, which makes them very versatile. Medics are a very interesting unit that can't fight very well, but they can restore HP to other adjacent infantry units. The HP seems to drop off as the medic takes damage, so keeping them healthy is very important. In the demo, the healing did not cost any funds, so the potential value these medics can generate is pretty insane. Up next, let's take a look at the vehicles, starting with the truck. A cheap transport unit moving on tires that reminds me a lot of the wagon from Wargroove. It can transport up to 2 infantry units, but what's even more insane is that if they weren't loaded in the same turn, units dropped out of a truck can move, capture, and even attack immediately. If this is not changed before release, it's going to make transport units incredibly strong. But I actually like it, since in the competitive scene of Advanced Wars, transports are almost never utilized, and I think that's a shame. Then we have the buggy. It's the Recon. It moves fast, it is strong against infantry, there really doesn't seem to be any big changes to it. Then we have another ground transport vehicle in the IFV. This is essentially an APC from Super Famicom Wars. It's a little more expensive and slower moving than the truck, but it moves on threads, making it more ideal for terrain, and it can attack other units with guns. It's interesting that Warside offers multiple kinds of ground transports, and it shows that the devs really want transports to be part of the game. Then we have the artillery. It works pretty much like it always has. Shoots on units far away, deals good damage to vehicles, nothing much to say here. The same applies to the tanks, the bread and butter of vehicle combat. They're fast, versatile, great for early aggression. Again, no huge changes here. The rockets are also pretty much unchanged. They fire further than artillery, but are a lot more expensive. They have great potential for value, but are also very easily destroyed. The SAM is also exactly like the missile, an indirect ground-to-air unit. I did notice that the range have been buffed a little bit from Advance Wars, which is a nice thing to see. However, things really start to get interesting when we get to the next unit, the Rhino. This is a faction-specific unit, at least that's what the dialogue told me during the campaign. The Rhino is a heavy vehicle that doesn't really seem to deal a lot of damage, but what they can do is push other units around on the battlefield. Not only can it really mess with the enemy positioning, but if you push a vehicle into a tile they normally cannot occupy, like a river, lake, or a mountain, they get instantly destroyed. This is absolutely bonkers, and while I absolutely love the concept, I see this unit being an absolute nightmare to balance in competitive play. I kinda see it going down the path of the Black Bomb, being banned in any serious matchup. I love the idea, it's absolutely hilarious, and I hope it makes it into the game, but man, this unit is going to be controversial. I've heard from the developers that every single faction will have their own crowd control unit that is capable of changing unit positioning on the map, so I look forward to seeing how the others work out. Lastly, we have the Giant. This is essentially the mega tank. Slow, lumbering, devastating to other vehicles, and can soak up a tremendous amount of damage, but is incredibly costly to deploy. Now, a crucial unit that's missing from this lineup is the anti-air, but I have been informed by the developers that it will be in the final release, so don't worry, we won't have to rely primarily on SAMs for anti-air. However, the developers did say that there were many units that they have designed but scrapped, but that they might still add them to the game for people to use in the map editor, which is really cool. Up next, we have the air units, and here there are some absolutely massive changes with the first transport unit, the T-Copter. It can actually carry up to 3 infantry units at once, and as with the truck and IFV, it can drop them off and have them move and capture in the same turn. What's even more crazy though is that the T-Copter can carry light vehicles. They take up 2 slots, so you can only ever carry 1 at a time, and from what I see, I was only able to pick up trucks, IFVs, buggies, and also rockets. And before you say anything, no, you cannot drop off a rocket and fire in the same turn, they're grey when they come out. Anyway, you can get them into a good position, which might make rockets and transport copters a very strong combo. You can, on the other hand, drop a buggy behind enemy lines and try to take out some crucial units. And yes, you can load an infantry into a truck and then load that truck into a T-Copter. The possibilities are endless here, and I can't wait to try it out in an actual player versus player game. Then we have the Battle Helicopter. It works very similarly to battlecopters in Advance Wars. It's fast, versatile, good against ground units, but there is one big change, and that is the fact that other ground units no longer seem able to shoot back at it, meaning that until it gets killed by an anti-air, it will stay on 10 HP and not degrade, which I actually like. Then we have the Jet. It works exactly like the fighter, it's fast and it shoots down other airplanes. Lastly, we have the Bomber. It too seems mostly unchanged. It moves fast and deals a lot of damage to ground units. In the demo, I was not given the chance to play around with naval units, so I can't really say anything about that yet, but as an avid naval enjoyer from Advanced Wars, I really hope that they'll play a key role in Warside. A great way to ensure that this will happen is to add naval-based properties like Wargroove did. If there's resources to fight over in the sea, naval combat will become key. So yeah, with the units out of the way, it's time for me to deliver my closing thoughts. Once again, I cannot stress enough that this is not a complete review of Warside, but just an early look at a demo. So much you see in this video is subject to change before release, so please don't get caught up in tiny details. What I will say about Warside is that it has a lot of potential. I really enjoyed the 6 missions that I played. The developers have created something very good here, and if they play their cards right, this game can become a smash hit. The Advance Wars community is hungry for a good game after the failure of the reboot camp, so they have a huge opportunity to capitalize on this big time. Wargroove tried to do this and almost succeeded, but they failed because they neglected the online competitive scene. My advice to the developers of Warside is to really focus on the multiplayer aspect of your game. Include online matchmaking. Have a rating system to separate players based on skill. Make sure players have a reason to get invested. My personal advice is to get in touch with the Advance Wars by Web community and ask them for guidance. There are so many crazy talented people in this sphere that can help you out with things such as map design and online competitive features. Obviously, my plan forward is to make more videos about Warside as it gets closer to a release. The devs have invited me to play a multiplayer game against them in the near future, which I think sounds absolutely amazing. As of this moment, there is no release date set, but I think we can expect to see a lot more news drop about this game later on in the year. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think about Warside so far and if you're interested in getting it. I'll leave a link to the Steam page so you can go ahead and add it to your wish lists. I know I already have. Give this video a like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more Warside content. My name is Mengs. Thank you so much for watching.